Hello there, and welcome back to the Agostinho Zinga show with me, your host, Agostinho Zinga, and this is episode number 397. That's 397 of the Agostinho Zinga show with me, your host. How you going? How you feeling? Great, amazing. How am I? Same old, hanging on in by the skin of my teeth, by the non-existent nails on my fingertips, just hang on in there, trying to make the best of what we have available. If it's your first time tuning into a show via YouTube, make sure you smash that like, hit subscribe, and of course leave me a comment down below. And if you're listening via the podcast app, leave me a 5-star review, share the show with your friends, and of course support via Patreon is always welcomed. The link can be found below, patreon.com/Agostinho. That's patreon.com/Agostinho. For as little as $1 or equivalent of £1 per month, you get access to this very show here in full HD audio format before anyone else gets it. So before it's out on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever, you can get it available directly via Patreon first. And of course you get one bonus episode via Patreon, which is going to be coming at the end of this week, so make sure you sign up to get alert of that one bonus episode on Patreon available there. So make sure you back the kid on there. All your support is greatly appreciated. Cool. What's been going on this weekend then? Nothing much really, for the most part. What's been happening? We've had the first full, I guess, weekend of lockdown 2.0 in the UK here, which is not really been much of a lockdown if all things are even, all things are fair. We've kind of just picked up from where we should have been, maybe let's say a couple of months ago. That's probably something we probably should have thought about, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. We are where we are now. Here it is. Apart from that, United played over the weekend against Everton. We ended up winning 3-1. Scoreline, I'd say, didn't flatter us, but it wasn't a 3-1 performance, so that was something I'll talk about later. And then of course some other various bits and bobs have transpired too. But what's been the most important news of the weekend? Oh yeah, the presidential elections in the US, right? So as it stands at the moment, Joe Biden has won, but it hasn't been confirmed, because I guess Trump is still going to contest the result. He's not very, or Trump's camp aren't too best pleased with how the votes were counted in the end. And, aside from all the conspiratorial nonsense that can kind of garner, I do have a bit of sympathy for that position. Whether or not he probably shot himself in the foot anyway prior to the elections by, he spent a long time dismissing or denigrating mail-in votes. And supposedly, from what I read online, I don't know why this is the case, but for some reason, Democrats tend to mail in their votes more often than Republicans. And then of course you've got the COVID stuff going on, so there's a segment of the population that believes in COVID, so they're probably not going to be that infused about going out to a polling booth to go and vote for this election, which they're probably not that enthusiastic about anything else anyway, because two of the options are pretty shit. So coupled that with Trump, basically, poo-pooing the idea of mail-in votes, it makes sense why the votes are skewed. But my, rational hat on, I have to say, if all the votes that have been counted late are always, kind of skewing up on the side of Biden, that does seem a bit fishy to me. Again, I don't know politics. I'm not very au fait with how they go about electing their presidents in the United States, what process you have to go through, what steps are in place. I know there's a few political pundits have come out who basically called it. I think the guy from Rising, he basically called it within 1 point as to where the votes will be allocated, where, key swing states, blah, 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 blah. And he was able to predict it within 1 point. So I'm sure if you pay attention enough, you could have seen this happening. You could have seen this coming on Trump's end under the things. But I don't know, man. Part of me really did think Trump had a chance of winning, just because 2020 has been such a crazy year, right? So many tragic celebrity deaths, of course COVID raging throughout the entire world, other really, protests, terrorist attacks. Like, there's been some absolute madness going on within a span of 12 months. So I was just of the thinking, the only way this year would make sense in terms of capping it off would be if Trump won a second term. That was the only way it would make complete sense. Anything apart from that wouldn't make any sense. But maybe Americans have sort of just maybe it's not even because of, no one can sit here and say Biden is an angel, right? Because I'm sure some people who are against the war are going to be a bit nervous about having Joe Biden, be in the White House, because he's probably going to be a little bit trigger happy in terms of invading some unbeknown country in the Middle East. And Kamala Harris's record as a prosecutor and attorney general is, or state prosecutor and attorney general, right? Attorney general, yeah. It's nothing to really ignore, right? She probably isn't. I wouldn't say she's a friend of black and brown people. It would be fair to say she's probably an enemy. And I don't think someone like that can suddenly make a 360-degree U-turn in terms of some of the her ideas and policies that she's going to enact. So it's going to be very interesting to see how she ends up communicating with the woke progressive left, right? Because they seem to be quite, I don't want to say centrist, but they're probably a lot more Republican than they are quasi Democrat, especially in the woke sense of it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. But it does feel like this is a bit of a victory for sanity. It feels like for the states, they've just had enough of the freak show. They just had enough of the circus, especially with COVID. I think maybe in a non-COVID year, Trump would have probably won re-election. Maybe that's something to say, because you think to yourself, if the economy was booming as he says he was, and jobs were overflowing, and the stock market was up, and all this sort of stuff he likes to brag about, and he serviced people in middle America, and he made the middle class happy, and all these sort of great things, right? Tax breaks for the ultra rich, kept manufacturing in certain key spots or location. Hollywood was thriving, blah 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 blah. There's a part of me that thinks the American public would have been, what, let's just keep this going for another 4 years. We can probably grin and bear it. But I think in the midst of COVID, with what's going on in the world, it's just you just can't have, if there's so much uncertainty that out there, the last thing you need is to have uncertainty on your own soil, especially with your commander in chief. And you're just too reckless. You would have thought, like, I don't know, prior, because that whole Hitler comparisons to Trump were a bit far-fetched, right? He didn't really turn into Adolf Hitler. He doesn't necessarily have the acumen or the patience to become a demagogue in that way, right? He's just a bit of a narcissist, right? But in terms of having the potential to be the next Stalin and stuff, that never really happened under Trump. He just hasn't got the brains to basically figure that operation out. Of course, if you're an American, you have to be a bit worried, because somebody that dumb was able to, I won't say that dumb, it's somebody that was less as unstrategic as Trump is, pretty impulsive and everything he does, especially if you read some of the accounts. He just, he flies to see if his pants. If that's the case, you have to be a little bit nervous about what would happen if somebody got into power who was a little bit more, not even pragmatic, who had a little bit more foresight, right? Who was a little bit more deliberate in their actions, knew what to button suppress, knew what to play, right? Because Trump did that whole racist dog whistling thing for a bit, but he kind of backed away from it pretty quickly when his feet were put to the fire. But if you get someone that can really press those buttons well, you could be in for a really scary time, innit? It kind of reminds you of that, what's that Bible scripture about, the Antichrist being somebody that you would never expect, right? The Antichrist is probably going to be somebody that looks more like Barack Obama as opposed to Rudy Giuliani, right? He's going to come in, be very charismatic, be the answer to a lot of things in the immediate term, but obviously long term, he's going to be bad for humanity. But anyway, part of me thinks Trump could have won if you just would have been a bit more sensible, and just with the, I hate to use the phrase presidential, but just would have had some kind of sympathy, empathy towards the situation people were going through, especially during COVID. He just dismissed it like nothing was going on. He gets it himself and doesn't use the opportunity to, to maybe to get everyone behind the collective effort. Even if it was just like, hey, I got it, I shook it off, but I had the best physicians and doctors in the world looking after me. But we've been told that if we kind of get this thing down for the next 4 weeks, I'm not going to mandate mask anymore or whatever, right? He could have just done something along those kind of lines just to alleviate some fears. But I think that, along with the fact that each state has their own governor who basically runs a ship the way that they want to run it, and there's just so many different swings around. There's so much different variations of how they kind of address COVID in the States. It's just probably is impossible to kind of govern and to kind of get them all in line. But a unified message from the heading for the man in the hot seat would have definitely gone a long way. But unfortunately, he did only, it seemed like, for the most part, again, maybe it wasn't his fault, because for the moment he stepped into the White House, the guys on the left weren't giving him any chance, but he did only really govern for the Republicans, and he wasn't really an American president. Maybe that's where they, the American public have sort of voted like, hey, we need a unifier. We need someone to come in who's, dare I say, boring, right? Just your typical politician in Joe Biden, typical, political professional in terms of Kamala Harris. Two people who you know exactly what you're going to get. Their record speaks more than what they say. I think that's what people should really keep an eye on. Keep an eye on Joe Biden's record prior to him, becoming vice president, prior to him now becoming, president elect. Obviously, keep an eye on read back on what Kamala Harris's record is like, and you'd kind of get a good idea of what they are like as people. But I think this is just maybe a vote for sanity, a vote for a clear head, a vote for a return to normalcy. I'm not really fond of the whole like protesting and cheering in the streets. I think that's a little bit corny. I think when Trump won and all the left people were in the streets crying and shouting, and Republicans were mocking them, people didn't like that either. I think there should be a little bit of dignity. It's not, and again, it's not teams, it's not United v Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? It's like the fate of your country is at stake here, especially during these unprecedented times. Everyone needs just to come together and just put the differences to one side, at least for now. You can get back to fighting each other next year, but until we got a vaccine in circulation, it might be beneficial just to kind of try and keep the peace, as they say. But yeah, man, so far it's looking like what you got 279 votes as opposed to Trump's 214. Again, not a landslide that they were predicting. There's still some votes to be counted in from Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and Alaska. But for so far, everyone's saying that's basically it. He's not going to make up the difference with those 3 states, I guess, or 4. Sorry. And yeah, not as a landslide as everyone thought it was going to be. Whether or not this is going to alert the Democrats as to some bits that they're missing out on in terms of how they address the public or the American citizens, it's probably not going to happen. But yeah, sanity prevailed, I guess. They want to return to normalcy. They want a president that's just going to govern for the majority of Americans out there. And I guess maybe you couldn't get a safer pair of hands than Joe Biden, or a more simpler to read set of hands in it. And ultimately, if the goal is to get Kamala Harris into the Oval Office, because people are saying that Biden isn't at his best at the moment, both mentally and physically. If that's the case, then it's probably a good idea to put them in power now and then to wait for 2024. But yeah, I guess he won. I'd love to know. Let me know, my American listeners, are you happy with the result? Would you prefer Trump to have been in power? So far, all the riots and fighting that we thought were going to happen hasn't necessarily transpired. Now, is that because it hasn't been confirmed officially? What do you guys think? I'm sure the ceremony where they kind of, where Trump is meant to concede is going to be interesting, isn't it? But so far, that is what we know. Next on the list, what else do we have here to report on? Oh, some good news, at least in the fight for COVID. Supposedly, news spread today that Pfizer have developed a vaccine that is 90% effective. 90%. I think this might be the first one so far that I've read that's kind of had this result. I think they've had a couple of trials that have had run into some issues, naturally, as you're putting together a vaccine in record time. But this news is definitely some welcome respite in terms of what's going on, because of course we're heading into the winter months, flu season. It feels like it's going to be a little bit more, it's going to be even more tricky than we actually anticipated in terms of getting the numbers down of infections and cases and whatever it may be in hospitalizations. Most parts of, Western Europe, Central Europe, and parts of North America are really suffering in a big way. And there doesn't seem to be any other logical way out of this apart from just having a vaccine. I think everyone's reached lockdown fatigue in some way, shape, or form. Even the ones like myself who have kind of abided by the rules for the most part, I just want to get this thing over and done with, man. I just want to get this over and done with. So this is the headline from The Guardian. Says hopes rise as for an end of pandemic as Pfizer says the vaccine is 90% effective. Great to hear. zoom this in a little bit so I can read it. It says, hopes are soaring that a COVID vaccine is within reach, following news that an interim analysis has shown that the Pfizer BioNTech candidate was 90% effective in protecting people from transmission of the virus in global trials. Amazing. The vaccine performed much better than most experts had hoped for, according to the company's analysis, and brings into view a potential end to a pandemic that has killed more than 1 million people. Jesus Christ. Battered economies and upended daily life worldwide. The data is from an interim analysis and the trial continues into December, but the headline results were emphatic. Regulators will be looking to the process an emergency license application at a record speed. Global stocks surged to record highs on the news, while companies that have become synonymous with lockdowns in the West, including Zoom's videos, conferencing, and food delivery firms, saw falls in their value. Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? So the ebbs and flows of the stock market. If you put some money in there, you're probably laughing now. It continues. John Bell, Regis Professor of Medicine at Oxford University, who was involved with the Oxford vaccine, said that the Pfizer team has shown an amazing level of efficacy, and it could mean a return to normality by spring. Jesus Christ. I'm the first guy to say that, but I will say it with some confidence, he told BBC. So interesting he says that. I'm still of the, what did I say prior? I said I think my guess or my bet would be, when I say return to normality, whatever you were doing this time last year, because I was looking at some of my images, I was at flipping Fold this time last year for the Innovisions label night, right? One of the best nights, right? Super fun. So whatever you were doing then, I say the first, the earliest you could probably do that, I would say, would be the end of spring or the beginning of winter next year, or realistically I'd say 2022. Now if this guy's saying normality, back to normality, sorry, by spring of next year, that's pretty encouraging, right? He's maybe saying what, April onwards we'll probably be back to some level of normality, which is pretty encouraging, and that's mostly because of the vaccine. I think my estimation prior was just more so, okay, how long can world economies afford to stay closed or restricted in movement in whatever shape or form without a vaccine? I think you'd have to return to some level of normality before the end of the year, or the beginning of next year. You couldn't have, or sorry, the beginning of 2022, before the end of, that's how you'd have to do that, because there's no, there's only so much economies can take of people not freely moving around, contributing to tourism and all that sort of malarkey. But if there's a vaccine in place, things can speed up, within 6 to 8 months, right? And it can really open stuff up and give people more room to, grow, to basically get acclimatized with what's going to go on newly. It's just really encouraging that. So it continues here. Manufacturing is already underway. Pfizer said they expect to supply globally up to 50 million vaccine doses in 2020, up to 1.3 billion doses in 2021. Countries will decide who they prioritize for the vaccinations. In the UK, the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization has recommended that, presuming the vaccines work well enough in elderly people, the first vaccines go to care home workers and residents, which is ironic considering they didn't really give a shit about them, but hey, followed by anyone over 80, and then other health and social workers. After that, people are expected to get them in decreasing age order. That's pretty cool. The news comes too late to help Donald Trump's re-election campaign in the US, but the Vice President Mike Pence tried to claim that the administration Operation Warp Speed program had helped the vaccine development. Pfizer denied the suggestion. We were never part of the Warp Speed. Catherine, the senior vice president of the head of the vaccine research development of Pfizer, said in an interview, "We have never taken any money from the US government or anyone." Who knows, man? Maybe they did do some. Again, no one wants to be associated with a loser, so I'm sure Pfizer want to, hitch their ride on the Joe Biden train. But I'm sure it had something to do with it, definitely, because it was as much as Trump did a bad job in dealing with COVID in the States, it was in his interest to get it sorted. I'm sure he was doing anything within his power. He suggested people should, inject bleach into their veins or into their bloodstream in order to get rid of the virus, right? So if that's the case, you knew he was desperate for a vaccine, because he knew if he was able to restart the economy and kind of be the first country in the West to be back, quote unquote, he could really use that as part of his slogan of getting things done, and using that as one of his things to kind of rally behind. but unfortunately that didn't obviously happen. BioNTech, the small biotechnology company that is the originator of the vaccine, was founded by two married German scientists, Ugur Sahin and Özlem Turek, both born to Turkish immigrant parents, and the Austrian oncologist Christopher Huber. Interesting that, isn't it? Considering how poorly Turkish migrants are treated within Germany, for the founders of the company that's spearheading the vaccine to be of Turkish descent is, ooh, the karmic get back on that one is high. It said it originally set out to develop new types of immunotherapy for cancer, but has concentrated its capacities on the race for a COVID-19 vaccine. There are so far no safety concerns around the vaccine, with two companies reporting no serious side effects. The high percentage of those protected makes it especially compelling. Regulators have previously said that they would approve the vaccine that was just 50% effectiveness rate, protecting half of those who get vaccinated. Jesus. So if they would roll out 50%, and 90% was going to be high. So today is a great day for all science and humanity. The first set of results from the phase 3 COVID-19 vaccine trials provides the initial evidence of our vaccine ability to prevent COVID-19, said Dr. Albert Bourla, the Pfizer chairman and chief executive. He says we are reaching this critical milestone in our vaccine development program at the same time when the world needs it most, with the infection rate setting new records, hospitalization nearing overcapacity, and the economy struggling to reopen. Yeah. It's just needed, isn't it? Over 1 million deaths, man. It's just absolutely mad, isn't it? 1.5 million deaths. Wow. What a crazy time to be alive. But yeah, glad we did some light in the tunnel, thankfully. Let's hope the trials continue to go well and we see a vaccine rolled out to the entire public very soon. And of course, over the weekend, I think this is the first weekend of lockdown 2.0 in the UK, where essentially all non-essential shops have been closed, which has meant for me personally, gyms have rendered themselves completely useless in this time, which has been very upsetting to say the least. But yeah, we're trying. We obviously had a bit of a surge here in the UK. We're trying to bring the numbers down and get things back to some level of, not say normality, but something a bit more manageable than they were prior. Some people could blame the government for telling us to go eat out and help out, telling us to go summer holiday within the UK shores, and then everyone's sort of piling onto whatever beaches we have available. The fact that none of this stuff was really mandated by the police or anything, unless there were large gatherings, people were basically allowed to do as they pleased. And now, off the back of this announcement of lockdown 2.0, and with businesses for the most part really struggling, off the back of a second lockdown, it's been difficult during the first lockdown in the first place, because the government not necessarily supporting these smaller businesses or freelancers or people working within the creative industry. So to have a second lockdown that's severely affecting their income is really distressing, even more so when you see some of the videos and the clips going around over the weekend of people in London just living life like nothing's going on. And this is one of the first ones I kind of saw on the timeline. This is from Victoria Park in East London, and it looks like a scene out of, I don't know, what would you say? It looks like a scene out of like any other time in the summer, and I just can't get my head around as to why everyone. No, I get why everyone's at the park, right? Because people have this weird idea that somehow going out and getting fresh air is going to somehow cleanse your lungs of a virus. I don't know what that is, but I guess it comes from the idea that the virus for the most part doesn't spread that well, or isn't that effective in its in its contamination, whatever you call it, when people are outdoors. Most of the cases where people have spread it in super spreader events have generally been from people staying within close proximity indoors. There has been, of course, occasions it's happened outdoors. Case in point with Trump's event, when they had to swear in that the new state prosecutor, whatever her name is, right, attorney general, right, is that attorney general? No, attorney general William Barr, whoever that woman was, they had to swear in. That was a big super spreader event, but for the most part that doesn't necessarily happen that way, innit? So I get the idea, go to a park, get some fresh air, but the fact that everyone's out there at the same time, and also the fact that we've got these weird tents to the left hand side of the screen that look like a tent that you might see for a street food convention, or the tents that they put up during a marathon race or something. It just doesn't make any sense what exactly is going on here. So I'll play a bit of the video here. people just walking around. Of course, majority of people not wearing a mask, which I understand. I am of the thinking, if I go outdoors, I go for a run, or if I go pop into shops, no, what if I'm on my way to pop into shops, I don't wear a mask. But as soon as I go into an indoor environment, I put one on. But also, you can't just not wear a mask and be around surrounded by everybody, right? That kind of renders the whole idea behind not having one and not being around people completely null and void, doesn't it, really? But again, very concerning, because I get the ice cream truck, but I don't know what the other things are. Are they pop-up shops? Like, and why? How can they work during this time? Or maybe it's just part of the rules that I'm just not familiar with. I'm not really sure what that is all about. And then continuing on, we've got another video here from Broadway Market from the same guy who's, look at that. That looks like any other weekend, really. In most, metropolitan cities where people get to hang out and shit. You would never think that there was a global pandemic going on right now, would you? Plant mums everywhere, people eating street food. But I get it, innit, right? There is a need to be around other humans. I guess that's why everyone's kind of congregating in the same sort of area, just feeling the ambiance and the kind of vibrations of people walking by you, bouncing off of you, smelling people's fragrances, hair shampoo, and just general sweat. There's something probably there's something that's tied into our ancestry that kind of ties into all that other black sauce that ties into it and makes it make sense. But for me, I don't know. I don't necessarily get what's going on there. Maybe they know something that I don't. Is this going to affect our ability to get out of stuff probably sooner? Probably. But again, with what I said in the beginning, I just think people have generally reached a bit of fatigue in terms of being on London lockdown. They just don't want to do it anymore. You know what I mean? They're fed up. They want to go outside and live their lives, and I get it. Which is probably why this vaccine is probably the vaccine news has been it's good news. It's coming at the right time, because I think if we go on another year like this, like, people are just gonna say, you know what, F this, I'm going out, like, forget this, I don't care anymore. So hey, what can you do? Moving on, we have very, very important news from the Golden Arches. They've unveiled a new Christmas menu that features a Big Mac that, for some reason, I don't know why they flipped, or I don't know why they messed up and didn't call it the Bigger Mac, actually. But hey, maybe they know more things than I actually know. But this is news here from the Mirror, saying McDonald's unveiled its Christmas menu, including a double Big Mac and a celebration McFlurry. With Christmas menus being released or by all your favorite fast food places, it was just about time that McDonald's revealed its own festive offerings for 2020. That's right, the fast food chain has been getting fans in the festive mood by releasing details of its seasonal menu. There's everything you could want, from a mouth-watering burgers to special desserts and even festive coffees. But just what McDonald's offering for McDonald's meal, here's it below. So you got this Big Mac that's effectively an extra patty in each bit, right? And of course, it looks far more delightful on the pictures than it's going to look like when you get it in real life. I'm sure most of you have seen the kind of secrets behind the McDonald's photography and how they make it look a certain way and blah 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 blah. But really, right? They call it the double Big Mac, but did they miss out a treat by not just calling it the Bigger Mac? That would have been such a good name to put, to kind of characterize this thing. But that's coming up, and then you've got the celebrations McFlurry, which I'm assuming includes some sort of celebration chocolates, right? All in one. But I'm not sure how many of them you actually get. If it's just I don't know how they're going to do that one. Then you've got the Jamaican jerk chicken sandwich, which is always a little bit. That's the one thing they haven't necessarily sorted out in McDonald's, how to perfect the chicken sandwich. And it's a shame, because if part of me thinks if they were able to perfect it and get it to some sort of level, maybe the same level as like a KFC Zinga burger or just a bit above that, they would absolutely kill the market, right? In terms of fast food chains, in terms of what they offer, because they do a pretty decent pretty more than decent cheeseburger and quarter pounder, right? Staples. They probably have the best fries in the high street. But when it comes to nuggets, obviously, they kind of win. They don't need to make wings if they've got nuggets. So that's one of them ones. They've got the sides with all the cheese bites and cheese sticks and shit that people always love. Milkshakes do really well. McFlurries are awesome. So they cover all the bases really. But the only thing they're missing out on is getting a really good chicken burger. They don't seem to be able to get it right. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's not a priority. Maybe there's some sort of weird non-competition clause that's involved in what they put out there. But it's very interesting that they don't have something, especially in Europe, where we don't have a Chick-fil-A or a Popeyes equivalent, right? That's really setting the bar high, because unfortunately KFC, much like Burger King, if you've ever been to those establishments, you'll know, especially in the UK, the standards vary so wildly depending on the locations that you're in. One Burger King you go to, they don't even wrap your thing properly. One of them, they don't put enough condiments on there, all the right ones, right? There's some KFC, you have to wait half an hour for your food to get delivered, even though there's like 6 members of staff working behind there. It's all completely random. Once you find your spot, of course, you just keep going there, right? And the guys probably find out what your best, your favorite order is, which is always a bit depressing when you go into a fast food establishment and they already know what you want to order. You spent too much time in there. But part of me thinks McDonald's could put together a pretty solid chicken burger. They would be number one on the high street in my estimate. But anyway, some prices here. Launching on November 18th, it will be available as a single sandwich for $4.19. Oof, it's a bit pricey, isn't it? What's that? That's like $6 for that double Big Mac, okay? Or as a meal with a side and a drink for $5.69. Hey, also on the festive menu is a Jamaican jerk chicken sandwich, which includes 2 pieces of crispy chicken with jerk chicken sauce. It'll be available for $4.39 and $5.69 again for that one. Celebrations McFlurry will come in 2 sizes. Oh, it's got, okay, the celebration contains pieces of Malteser, Galaxy, Mars, Twix, and caramel sauce. Interesting. You don't really see none of that there in that picture, and it's hard to kind of pick up, but there are some different bits there, so that's pretty cool. And then we got the sweet treat will come in 2 sizes, mini 99p and regular for $1.39. Again, clever use of differentiating your price point and ultimately getting more profits in, when they just decided to just split the McFlurry pot in half. Genius move there. Of course, I might have to spend a bit more in terms of getting the the bespoke kind of 1/4 inch thing made, so right, the little pots they put them in, but it's a great way to squeeze a bit more money out of your McFlurry really. Fancy a festive coffee. The fast food chain also offering a caramel latte for $1.69, described as a hug in a mug, which is definitely going to be full of sugar. And of course, making the festive return is the cheese milk dippers, which will be set you back at $1.79 with 4. Yeah, those are very popular, as Charles meat dippers. And the Christmas menu for McDonald's will be available until December 29th. Okay, wow. I mean, you get 6 weeks only. Very tight in it, considering. I know. I wonder why they do that. I'm interested to see what it ends up looking like. Hopefully, we get Review Bruh doing a review of these delights sometime very, very soon. But interesting to see nonetheless. Maybe for those fatties out there, it's an interesting thing to look forward to, myself included. So let's see what Guan's there. Next on the list, what do we have? Oh yeah. So United won away at home against Everton the other day, right over the weekend. Got some time to kind of mull over the results, watch the game back, watch extended highlights, cover and watch some obviously match reviews and analysis and all that malarkey. And I'd want to provide some of my thoughts on the game and what I think lies ahead for United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So as per usual, start with the lineup. Of course, lineup, I wasn't necessarily looking or awaiting any big surprises. I knew most likely to not, whenever Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's job is at the line, he always seems to go for his tried and tested and the players he knows he can trust in terms of getting a performance in. So the back five sort of picks itself. They haven't necessarily let him down in any way, shape or form, apart from some rare moments of calamitous decision making from Maguire, Lindelof or De Gea. Mostly they've been quite solid with their performances, so that picks itself. And in the midfield was the interesting part, where he essentially went for a 4-4-2, I'm going to say, where he had Freddie McTominay playing in centre midfield with Rashford and Mata providing a width and obviously covering for the fullbacks too, and Bruno Fernandes playing behind Martial, who's basically playing up front his own after his suspension and going back into the team. And it worked. I'm going to be honest. It worked for the first. Like, obviously, we conceded a goal very early on, with Bernard getting on the end of a pretty decent knockdown, which I felt it was going to be spelling trouble. I think that's how they scored, right? A massive Pickford goal kick. Again, he can't save pretty well. He's pretty erratic, and he can't catch. But when it comes to using his feet, right, he can kick the ball really, really far. He kind of gets it right up until just outside the area. Calvert-Lewin smartly comes on the right hand side, which is where Lindelof was, challenges him in the air, wins it very easily, knocks it down to Bernard. Bernard gets the ball, and like all great Brazilians do, he has that knack of just getting the ball on the ground, a couple dummies, and hitting it on like the half dummy. So whenever you think he's going to feint one more time, he hits it. That's what most great Brazilian attacking midfielders really do. A great way of catching out the goalkeeper, and he sort of catch, because I think any other time, I think De Gea probably saves that, but I think the dummy is stepping inside. Obviously, Aaron Wan-Bissaka being right in front of his eye line, and obviously, Warren Bissaka being very good, adept at blocking shots with his feet. He was able just to sneak it under, and then they were winning 1-0. But I think we responded pretty well after that. We got a goal pretty soon after, I think about 10 minutes after I think that actually happened. Is it 10 minutes or so? Bernard, yeah, about 10 minutes, yeah, just under 5. Bruno Fernandes scores a header. He played pretty well. He had a bit of a maverick performance in terms of just really trying to push things. I'm still not a fan of his kind of balls around the corner, flicks and one-touch balls, the killer balls to sort of kind of split the defense. I think he kind of relies on that way too much, in the similar sense that Gerrard did before Gerard Houllier came into Liverpool. He had a tendency of always playing the Hollywood ball and not necessarily needed that often. But I thought he responded pretty well and really helped to inspire the team, so much so with the finish as well for the first goal. Bullet header into the bottom corner really kind of G'd everybody up, and a rare, very, very rare assist from Luke Shaw. What a difference it makes to just sign a quality left back in Alex Telles, a player that's probably doing a lot of good stuff in training, because Luke Shaw's performance levels have really improved since we've signed Alex Telles. So I'm sure even with coronavirus, Telles has looked phenomenal in training. We obviously saw what he did when he had a little cameo, or his only appearance for us against PSG. He played phenomenal. Some of this crossing on set pieces, in open play, just really kind of made your mouth water. So I'm sure Luke Shaw has seen that, and he's like, you know what, I can't risk this, because I think he's very aware that, much like Solskjaer, if he ends up leaving United, his options, there's only way for him is down. There's no way he's going to be signing for another top 6 club after he leaves United, that's for sure. Or it could always change, but I very much doubt it. So we're seeing a lot of better performances in Luke Shaw, and that cross in for Bruno Fernandes was brilliant. He actually was crossed in there with intention, crossed in there with purpose into a space. Bruno Fernandes attacks it, 1-1. And then we kind of got better control of the game after that. I thought the shape of our team was a lot better. Bruno Fernandes and Scott McTominay were imperious in the middle of the park. They really dominated that midfield. They bullied Decore and Alan for the most part. Even Sigurdsson had a really quiet game. We kept James Rodriguez significantly quiet. Bernard was probably the most liveliest out of the entire attacking front 6, I'd say, of this Everton side. They obviously missed a lot with that, with having Richarlison out of the team. He's definitely adds a little bit of a another dimension to their attacks. I think, unfortunately, with the players they have available, they just can't split teams open as they would like. And I think they did play a bit into our tactics. They didn't really pressure us too much onto the ball. They allowed Lindelof and Maguire to have the ball comfortably. Scott McTominay was pinging balls out to the wings willy-nilly, and most of the time that's not really Scott McTominay's repertoire. He usually does that very easily when he has time on the ball. Like most players, I think if you don't give them time, that's where you definitely see the difference in qualities in players, right? If they get impressed by very good defenders and able to wriggle out and still find a ball, that's a mark of a very top player. But if you're doubting your ability or a bit limited, you want to take as much touches as possible so you don't make a mistake. The fact that McTominay was whipping, spreading the balls out left, right, and centre goes to show just how much they set back off us, which probably allowed us to get control of the game. We end up with score obviously 1-1, a couple of chances here and there, one from Martial that he probably should have scored. Second half starts off much the same. Rashford probably should have scored a goal. He ends up fluffing his lines and missing that. And then, oh no, sorry, we end up going in 2-1, I think, before the break. Actually, I'm pretty sure. It's Bruno Fernandes again. He chips the ball into the box. My Rashford sort of glance headers it, but it does go in the bottom corner anyway. Well deserved lead for us, I think, with the balance of the game. And then second half, much the same too. We limited the chances that Everton were basically exposed to. Even look here in the stats, we had 13 shots to Everton's 7, 5 shots on target to Everton's 1, 45% possession, less than Everton actually. But I think we had, I'm gonna say they had probably some chances. Luca Dean probably should have crossed the ball in second half to Calvert Lewin. There was definitely a chance there. No, that was first half. Sorry, definitely a chance there for him to score in that regards. But I think we controlled large parts of that game without doing much to really control it. Again, I think our midfield definitely won that game for us. So credit to Solskjaer for picking McTominay and Fred. But ultimately, we're still 14th in the league, and I think that form there, a win, a loss, a draw, a win, a loss, definitely shows you where we are as a team and how much work definitely needs to be done in order to get us back where we need to be. And I think ultimately that's what's going to end up costing recent matches there. So yeah, so it's loss, win, draw, loss, win. That's definitely what's going to end up costing Solskjaer his job in the end. This inconsistent form, the favoritism of the players. Because I look back at that lineup, I think, yeah, we won, great. I still think this is probably the best formation, regardless of players. But there's a part of me that thinks there should be an aspect, especially when you look at Van der Beek, right? He got taken off for what, 60th minute against Istanbul, and the idea of, and he played the best on the pitch. He didn't give the ball away 100 million times like Bruno Fernandes did. He kept it neat and tidy. You can clearly see players enjoy playing with him because he's very quick and intentional with his passing, moves into space very intelligently, very versatile. The fact that he didn't play at all in this game leads me to believe that most likely Solskjaer didn't sign him. He was definitely a player that was given to Solskjaer by the board because Van der Sar had a contact, because he came up for sale, and we just signed him for the sake of it. Or maybe there was this, or maybe behind the scenes, the idea was that Pogba would move. But with COVID happening, it just never transpired. So instead of United losing the opportunity to sign Van der Beek now, they'd rather hold on to him, even if that meant him spending the best part of this entire season playing from the bench. It means that you have a player ready and willing to step in to fill in the shoes of Paul Pogba, or to fill in the kind of to be the person that can kind of come on for him when needs be. But I would like to see a little bit more flexibility in that. If Bruno Fernandes doesn't play, then you allow Van der Beek to play in that number 10 position, or Pogba. If Marcus Rashford doesn't play, you play Pogba there instead. I just think sometimes this tendency to switch the system when different players come on, or to make too many changes. I like the fact that he kept Freddie McTominay on. That really allowed us to see out the entire game without much incident, I think, towards the end. Whereas I think in the past, Solskjaer has done this thing where he'd take off Fred, put on Matic, or take off both players and put on one defensive midfielder. There's some odds things here and there, which again are ultimately going to end up costing him his job. But I think sticking to this formation and sticking to the spine of the team, right, whether it's this kind of diamond here, or just the back, whatever, what is that, the back 5, 6, 7, yeah, the back 7, sticking to that back 7 is probably the key to us actually doing things in this league, especially considering how topsy-turvy it is. There's definitely a room for us to challenge, or to really to kind of shake things up a little bit. We might, obviously, of course, I'm not expecting us to win the league. I'm not expecting us to win a domestic trophy or even a European trophy, but I expect us to have a bit of a good run and build upon what we built upon last season. And that's essentially why I still think long-term Solskjaer probably isn't the man for the job. Now, it's ironic that whenever we need a big result, he ends up pulling one out of his ass, and the players have, they have a lot to answer for, but you also do have to give them a bit of credit for sticking up for their guy and performing when need to be. They could have easily retreated into their shells after, going a goal behind against Everton away from home, a pretty well taken goal. It felt a bit ominous in that regard, but they sort of rolled their sleeves up collectively and kind of rallied around each other, and eventually ended up getting the victory, which is a really, really big result considering we got the international break coming up now. So we needed to go into that with a bit of a victory. But I'm still not convinced of Ollie, man. I'm really not. And I think his press conference after, his post-match interviews, the way he seemed rattled, complaining about the fixture pile-up, just seemed that somebody else under pressure. Now, I don't think the pressure, in my opinion, should be directed to him in this way. I think if the club has doubts about his ability to take this club to the next level or to do a good job, he should just be relieved of his duties regardless of our results. I don't think it's fair to have a manager, a legend like himself, be on such tender hooks waiting to see what happens game by game. That's not how you want to, a big club like United. You should have a clear plan in mind. Now, if the plan is to stick with him, you need to come out and strongly, categorically dismiss any rumours and say you've committed to seeing out this entire season with Solskjaer and you review things in the summer. You just need to say that outright. But the fact that they don't want to say that, the fact that they're reluctant, the fact that they're briefing members of the press about reaching out to Pochettino and other managers leads me to believe that eventually they will end up firing him and just looking for the perfect opportunity, because as per usual, United is mostly a PR machine as opposed to a football club. So they don't want to be seen as the owners that let go of the, fired the babyface assassin, right? The guy that came in and sort of saved us from Mourinho, provided us that magical evening in Paris, right? They don't want to be seen as that people. And there's also a part of them that knows if they fire Solskjaer, they're gonna have a lot to they're gonna have a lot to answer for in terms of whether or not Ed Woodward is the guy to take us forward too in that role as a chief executive. Why don't we have a football director? Are the Glazers bleeding the club dry? There's going to be too much attention brought towards the Glazers and what Ed Woodward has done at the club during their tenure. So if anything, they'd want Solskjaer to sort of write his own ticket, perform really, really badly, manage over a really bad form of games, and then get someone else in, because it'll be the perfect excuse to say, hey, you see, we gave him everything they needed, maybe not everything, but we gave him as much as we could and he still hasn't done the job. I think that's probably what they're going to end up doing, and I think that's probably the smartest decision to make. Again, do I like it? No. Do I still think Solskjaer needs to go? Probably yes, but he's not going to go anytime soon, especially if he keeps pulling out these results out of his ass. And for me, myself, as a United fan, I much prefer seeing us win than seeing us lose, regardless of who's in charge. You just can't take, another weekend of ignoring match of the day and not watching any football because I don't want to be reminded of the score. I'd rather us shithouse a win, me watch the highlights, be able to support my club and talk about it in this kind of positive way. But yeah, United 3, Everton 1. Happy with the victory. What else is next here? Ooh, So, interesting news here. We have Mr. One, Jeff Staple, decided to sit down for a talk, no pun intended, okay, with a guy called Ben Kicks for a show called Sneaker Talks. I guess Ben Kicks is a very popular sneaker collector a guy that hooks people up with shoes and has his own obscene collection of dunks here behind. Actually, I'll put it up the screenshot here on the screen. You should see it. He's got an entire wall full of dunks from, everything from diamond dunks to the hunters that I had to the Supreme dunks, Halloween, what the dunks. Got 3 pairs of what the dunks, which is ridiculous to say the least. Absolutely nutty collection. Loads of quality Jordan 1. He's got the original Yeezys here. He's got the Louis Vuitton Yeezys. He's got the MoMA Off-White Air Force Ones, Red October Yeezys. Like, absolutely insane collection, right? So of course, Jeff Staple, being a purveyor of hype himself and wanting to connect with the kids, decided to go on this show and sort of fight his case regarding the whole Warren Lotas bootleg Nike controversy that's, I wouldn't say gripped the sneaker community, but it has really been an interesting thing to observe from afar. From what I've seen so far, and again, I'm the worst person to communicate with this sort of stuff because I hate sneaker customizers. I think they're the most uninspired, unoriginal bunch of creators that exist within the streetwear scene. They regurgitate the same things, it's the same materials, the same color combinations, the same models of shoes that they always try and redo and remake. Really, really boring. But I understand, if you're into shoes and you're into luxury fashion, the only natural way up from buying shoes in the retail store is to then start asking someone like a shoe surgeon to cover it in python leather. Would I necessarily wear it? No. Does it make me want to vomit wherever I ate in the morning today? Yes, but I completely understand that kind of lane and why people would do it. Not necessarily something I like, not inspiring, not doesn't necessarily change or move the needle in any way, shape, or form, but I get why that actually exists. The issue I have with the Warren Lotas issue with the Dunk SBs was, number one, from what it looked like from the outside looking in, looked like he was just capitalizing on the resurgence of these Nike Dunks, right? Especially some of the collaborations that came out in the early 2000s, stuff like the Stussies and stuff that I didn't really care about, have now kind of become cultural items of the times, right, via their endorsement from hype sneaker collectors like Offset, Offset, Travis Scott, and a few other people who've been wearing Dunks for the best part of a year and a half. I still think the Nike Dunk is probably one of the most underwhelming shoes in terms of the amount of money Nike puts behind them and the amount of actual attention and love they get from the average everyday person and sneaker collector. I think there's more sneaker collectors out there that have more Dunks in their collection they don't wear than any other shoe. I'm guaranteed it, because I know that was the same for myself. I had more Dunks in my collection than I actually wore day to day. They just happened to be good to look at and put on the shoe wall. Anyway, that set aside, I don't think Warren Lotas did enough with his shoes for them to be deemed as a credible bootleg. He did hypothesize that he was somehow getting them made from the ground up in an Italian factory atelier, when that was completely false. They were just fakes that he bought from China, and he slapped his own logo on the side. Now, that's all well and good if you're doing that, but be upfront and tell your customers that you're doing so. Don't purport to be some sort of Savile Row level craftsman in terms of what you're putting together, when essentially you're just creating a sort of performance art piece in the same way that Heron Preston did when he put the Gucci print or Louis Vuitton monogram print on the swoosh on the side of his Air Forces, the street sweeper things, kind of harking back to the good old days of hip hop when people used to customize their Air Force Ones with various prints of luxury high fashion materials and stuff. So the shoe itself is uninspiring, pretty dead, pretty shit. But the surprising part of it is the fact that somebody so respected in the scene, not for me, because I think he's riding off the coattails of one good design he had back in the day when no one was really around, and since everyone else has popped up in the scene, he's had nothing else to answer for. He's only there because he's friends with people, had a long connection with them over time, again just because of his age. But in terms of actually producing meaningful, impactful cultural work, his best work has kind of been and gone, and his time has been and gone. But Jeff Staple, for him to kind of hatch his name to the Warren Lotas train was very odd, but it also made complete sense if somebody's desperate for relevancy and desperate to be included in the conversation. So for him to latch upon it, to co-sign it in some way, shape, or form, and want to kind of push it in some way, of course led to him supposedly being cut from Nike. I'm not sure how true that is. Actually, that was just a rumor I remember reading on Fashion Demics, because I think Nike unfollowed Jeff Staple on their social media accounts, and it seems like he's been going on a bit of an apology, wouldn't say apology tour, but an explanation tour, trying to rationalize why he decided to jeopardize his entire career for a pretty shitty sneaker customizer who's kind of pretty shitty graffiti artist who's LARPing as a sneaker designer. And he explains a little bit of the story behind why he decided to do it on this podcast called Sneaker Talk. Let's hear what Jeff Staple has to say regarding the issue.
Collabs with Nike, and like we said, you made one of the most dopest exclusive hype shoes on the market to this day. Years later, a decade later. Obviously, we've all been seeing Warren he did a Stussy dunk. He did, what was it, Heineken dunk, and then he did the hottest one of all, the Pigeon.
Yeah.
How was it? I don't know if you want to get into it too much, but whatever you can say, like, how was it, like, as far as the process of, like, how did he reach out? Whatever you can say, whatever you're comfortable saying on camera. I mean, obviously, a lot of people want to know about it, and everyone wants to know what exactly is going on.
Yep.
Fast forward a little bit.
I mean, I'll say I'm always a fan of DIY bootleg culture.
Right.
I just love it. That's how Staple started. And to me, that's where true creativity happens, I once heard Kanye West say, I hope every kid out there bootlegs my shoes, because that's when the next great shit will happen. So I've been a fan of Warren and what he was doing.
But again, kids, that's not bootleg culture. That's just you grabbing a shoe that already exists and putting your own swoosh on it. There's nothing, and again, you're not even buying the legit thing, and kind of the real flex would have been for him to spend his entire time documenting a process of buying up as many Pigeon Dunks as he could get a hold of in various levels of degradation and just general condition, right? For everything between 3 out of 10, somebody's actually skated them every day, to a brand new box, fresh pair, and restoring them to some level of acceptability, and then deciding to edit those. That would have been a really cool experiment, and trying to basically put them up available for auction, raise some money for a good cause, put some attention on whatever it may be. But going out and buying replicas, which are essentially fakes of shoes, and then putting your own tag on them, and still selling them for double what they're actually worth in terms of retail, right? Because you're paying less than $300 for them, but then to slap your logo somehow that justifies you adding another $150 on top of it to make it $300 is just plain lazy. It's not sneaker customizing. He's nothing like the shoe surgeon. He's a poor imitation of that guy. And again, I'm not even a fan of that kind of stuff that they do with all the lizard and python skin and everything.
I can't speak much more beyond that, because it is, as everyone knows, it's a legal matter now that I can't speak on. It's an open legal matter right now. And
what an idiot!
I could see the perspective on both sides, but I will say that brands have always pushed the culture forward, and it's always been uncomfortable for certain parties.
Right, of course.
When Bathing Ape first put out the Bapesta, pulled the swoosh off an Air Force One and put like something that looked like a swoosh and a star. Yeah. There was the OG heads that was like, yo, that's whack, that's basically a bootleg. Yeah. Japanese heads were like, no, that's dope, that's Nigo,
dope, yeah.
And of course now Bape is like a probably almost $1 billion company, and it can't be.
Again, it's a false equivalency. When that Bapesta first came onto the market, there was nothing like that existed. The whole idea behind it was, if I remember correctly, he wanted to do a collaboration with Nike. They refused, as per usual at the time, right? They don't really tapped in. Now they probably, they would probably suck their own dicks to have a collaboration with an up and coming Bathing Ape person. But back then they did. I'm assuming that's what the story is. Again, I may not be incorrect from what I remember. Here they refused to do a collaboration with him. He then goes out and decides to make his own version of the shoe. He puts it out, and it was essentially just an Air Force One with a Bapesta swoosh on it, or star print, whatever you want to call it. As Jeff Staple pointed out, they then, I guess, threatened to sue him. It doesn't necessarily go to that level. There's an understanding behind the scenes. They have some sort of communication where they get to some sort of resolution where Nigo ends up doing this thing to get out of being sued, where he changed, I'm going to say, 21 different design points of it, whether it's different paneling, different sections, different details, eyelet changes. There was these really small, subtle changes on the Bape side. Again, if you've got a pair yourself, you know what they look like in hand to compare to an Air Force One that really differentiate them. And again, for the naked eye, stepping back from afar, they look pretty similar, but they look no more similar than, what's that Louis Vuitton high that looks like a Jordan 1? It doesn't necessarily look like a Jordan 1, but obviously kind of lends itself from the elements of that iconic shoe. Loads of brands do that, again, because I guess for the most part it's pretty difficult to come up with an original silhouette, especially when you're competing with sneaker brands like Nike that have had decades and decades of experience. Some of the best designers working in their teams, kind of coming up with silhouettes. The best you can do as a luxury fashion brand, or a brand in general, is to just build upon the good stuff that they've done, and of course add your own little twist. Cool. What Warren Lotas did wasn't that. He bought some shoes from Alibaba, put his little stupid Freddy Krueger mask thing on it, and then decided to flip that for $300 as a way to kind of give kids a chance to own a pigeon dunk. It's not a pigeon dunk though. First of all, it's a fake, and second of all, you're just adding a swoosh on it. So again, false equivalency.
Be stopped at this point, and to me, it's like the difference between. Here's my thing. Like, I always want to just question, why does Nigo get away with it? But like when Skechers does a bootleg, it's horrible.
Right.
And it is horrible. I agree. Yeah. But I'm interested in
the
question of why, like, a dude in China who's a bootlegger is bootlegging,
and then no one gets away with it.
Skechers is whack, but Nigo is dope.
Because that's what streetwear is about. That's why Jeff Staple is. That's why Jeff Staple is not cool, and Hiroshi Fujiwara is. You might have been in a scene as long as he has, or whatever it may be, but you can never kind of equate to that level. It is what it is. This is such a weird way to justify himself being like, imagine wanting to die on a Warren Lotas hill. Imagine that, having all the experience that he's had in the scene, having seen all the ebbs and flows of it, to suddenly be be hitching your ride, hitching your reputation off the back of that guy is just odd. And again, justifying it with examples of Skechers. What?
This is
like what?
I 100% get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm confused why they'd be upset at anything you guys did, but it's more of like
Okay, let's fast forward a bit. He's going to be babbling a lot here, Warren, Benji.
Yeah.
I feel like they.
Let's see.
So I guess they this shoe right here.
Yeah. Now let's go to like Sabotage and Shoe Surgeon, who is not even changing the swoosh.
Right.
They're straight up bootleg. Like they are taking
Yeah.
the swoosh. And I love these guys. I've collaborated with them too. Because I also want to question, why is the guy who made the OG Pigeon Dunk with Sabotage, who is a DIY guy, you know?
Okay, he's talking out of his ass. Behind the scenes, the people at Nike don't like people like Shoe Surgeon, right? When they're going out and deconstructing shoes, I'm pretty sure he has to buy his own trainers. He has to kind of, really put up a lot of his own bread in order to do those workshops. There's a lot of work that goes into making those things. It's an actual craft. I'm sure from the time that I've spent working with people around that area, I'm pretty sure they're not too infused with the Shoe Surgeon doing what he does. But still, he does it. He actually cuts material. He builds a shoe from the ground up. He goes out and sources the best luxury materials. He puts it together in a very impeccable way. I've seen some of the reviews for the final product and they're really, really impressive. Not to my taste, of course, but in terms of objectively creating something from the canvas of what Nike have created in the past, epically done, right? That's how bootleg should be done in that regard. But to suggest that Warren Lotas is even in the same conversation as a Sabotage, or as somebody who's against legendary as a Sabotage and somebody as influential as a Shoe Surgeon, is a real disservice to those two guys and what their work that they've provided on the scene.
So to me, what's really interesting is that when Nike sues or gets mad, what they're saying is you're bootlegging. You're making people think that they're buying the fake thing. Like when you go to Canal Street and buy a fake Rolex, you want to floss to your friends that this is real. You want to trick them. No one's buying a Shoe Surgeon or a Warren Lotas shoe to trick their friends into thinking. It's a different thing.
They know that.
You don't go to warrenlotas.com, add $300 item to your car and be like, oh, he tricked me, man. I thought these were the pigeons. I thought these were the Stussies. No.
Come on.
This guy's a dumb.
Honestly, I like what he did with everything. It's great for now. It's
what's it saying here?
Started Nike. Do you know why he started this all back together?
Please.
Do you know how?
This is Jeff Staple attempting to blow people's minds with some pretty anecdotal, some pretty basic Nike history that you should all be aware of if you've read the Phil Knight book or you've been, you've been exposed to any kind of sneaker culture. You'd know this already, but to somehow use it to justify again the mess he got himself involved in is just so bizarre.
Phil Knight started Nike. Do you know why he started Nike? Phil Knight, everyone knows Phil Knight, the founder of Nike.
Of course.
He was a distributor for Asics Tiger sneakers.
Okay.
He was a distributor for the Japanese brand Asics. And he started selling Asics out the back of his trunk to all the runners on the West Coast.
Okay.
Right? He got so much demand that Asics couldn't supply the demand.
Okay.
He's like, yo, I need more of your shoes. I need more of your shoes. And they're like, we can't get you.
So what did he do? Did he go out and buy his own pairs of shoes and then slap his own logo on the side of it? Tell us.
Anymore. You're selling too well. And he's like, okay, I'm going to take a waffle maker and I'm going to make my version of what you did.
Right.
And he made it. And the first one was like the Bruin, the waffle runner, right? That was the first shoes. Those were bootlegs of Asics.
Right.
Bootlegs were inspired by the shoes he was selling. And again, key difference here, he made them.
He made the bootleg because the original maker couldn't supply the demand. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound at all familiar to what's happening?
He literally thinks he dropped the biggest gem in the world when he's just saying the most obvious of things. Everyone does this when they're starting something. If there's no skateboard brand that kind of adheres or kind of ticks the boxes of your interest, you go and start your own skateboard brand. There's no hardware brand that ticks the boxes of your interest, you go and start your own thing. You want a tool that kind of turns into a flipping iPhone charger, you make your own company off the back of that. Just because you build upon the great ideas of people that have come before you, doesn't necessarily mean it's a bootleg. That's not what Warren Lotas is doing. What Phil Knight did by getting out his waffle maker machine and making his own shoe by hand in those earlier days and building up Nike to being what it is now is completely different to the Shoe Surgeon going and buying, again, replica trainers, taking off the swoosh and adding his own insignia on the side of it. There's nothing transformative about that. that's just him buying ready-made stock and then putting his swoosh inside of it. Now again, if he sold it as that, that's no shame, no game, because that's the same thing that custom shoes and shoe designers in some respect do, right? Like I mentioned before, slapping a bit of Gucci fabric on the side of a swoosh, or completely removing the swoosh and putting other bits and bobs on it. But they're not selling that. They're not selling that as somehow I have made this shoe from the ground up with premium Italian materials. No, they're telling you, I went and bought this blank Air Force One from Foot Locker, from JD Sports, and I've added these things on it, and I'm hoping the things I've added on it has added value. And if that's the case, you are going to agree to pay this, this kind of inflated price tag on it. That's all well and good. We did it before. I think it was Meteor Sports I used to go to back in the day. They used to do airbrushing on the side of your shoe and shit. Wiley made those kind of famous back in the day during the Graham days, right? That was a thing that used to happen. But again, that was transformative on a canvas that you already knew existed, not pretending that you're somehow rebuilding a shoe from the ground up when you're absolutely not. And you know what the big thing is to point out why Warren Lotas is a scam? Look at what he's done since. Look at how he's tried to fight against this court case by bringing up those other monstrosities of shoes that he's now being sued a second time for, right? He's got another pair that looks exactly the same, where he's kind of sort of changed the paneling a little bit on Photoshop. And again, he hasn't made these things in real life, right? They're just things that he's going to then go and send out to Chinese factory to go and make off the back of it. Right, he hasn't actually made them himself as he's portraying it as. He's just gone and sent them to a factory somewhere in China, which probably explains why we haven't actually got any physical images of these things in real life just yet, of the new shoes, because with COVID and stuff, I'm assuming it's hard to get things in and out of the country. But what a bizarre hill to die on if you're Jeff Staple. You decide to hitch your ride. Again, for myself, I've never been a fan of the guy. I always thought he was a little bit of a chancer. He just happened to, get in the good books of everybody because he just hanged around long enough, right? If you stay consistent enough in the scene and you don't sort of slip away, you put out consistent work, even if it's not good. He regurgitates the same story about the flipping strip pigeon dunk and people queuing and people need to get stabbed and whatever nonsense he speaks about. Just an absolute charlatan that's finally been exposed for exactly what he is, going down in complete flames, still talking about his glory years, without inventing anything new. And his reputation is going to be sullied by some absolute dickhead of a designer who's kind of LARPing as a custom shoe designer when he's not. Absolute horror show a situation. Maybe I'm in the wrong here. Maybe I'm reading it wrong and I'm kind of being a little bit harsh, but I'd love to know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think Jeff Staple is explaining himself well? Is Phil Knight effectively Warren Lotas, or is Warren Lotas Phil Knight? Or is he just purposely misinterpreting the facts so he can fit his narrative and justify his decision to essentially throw away his entire career for a fake pigeon dunk made in a factory somewhere in China? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, what else do we have here to go on to talk about? Talking about Nike and talking about trainers, this is an interesting development, right? And it really makes me LOL, LMAO in general. So of course, most of you are aware how popular the Air Jordan 1s have become in the last few years. It's pretty nauseating to see the resale value and the fact that some of these shoes, some of the more generic colorways are selling out instantly just because of the silhouette, right? It happens in it happens in sneaker culture. There's sometimes a model that captures the imagination of everybody. It just becomes the model that everyone kind of wants. I'd say it kind of started with the Hirachi. Then it kind of progressed into the Vans territory for a bit. You couldn't turn, you couldn't step anywhere in London without seeing somebody wearing some sort of variation of a Hirachi shoe. Then it was obviously the Vans skate highs, skate lows for a while, and then of course it progressed into Air Maxes, and now it feels like we're heading into the Jordan Dunky territory. I don't really think the dunk is a thing. I think Nike have just poured a lot of marketing bucks into making a dunker situation, but I think for the average day person walking around day in day out, I don't necessarily see them wearing dunks in all the time. What I do see them wearing a lot of is the Jordan 1, and of course Nike have sort of seen this and decided to capitalize and double down and just flood the market full of these, and they look really, really odd especially this one here at the moment. So this is the 2021 Air Jordan Retro of the 85 neutral grade. I'm gonna say the Jordan 1 that sort of set it off on Instagram in terms of people buying up some of the OGs. I'm sure you've seen a lot of those fashion influencers wearing a pair, kind of, you know, discolored uppers, cracked, you know, collar section and shit, just really, really aged, but they seem to hold up really well. I'm not too sure why. I'm not too sure if the sole is not made up of some sort of polyurethane composite, which is definitely the things that my Jordan 4s and a few other shoes I've had have sort of broken down because of that. But some reason people have been able to get a pair from the 1980s, you know, in places, consignment stores in China, consignment stores in Japan and stuff, and they've been able to hold up. And of course, when the news leaked that they were going to retro the neutral grey colorway, everyone was pretty excited. But now, having seen the actual image of it, I'm less so. If you know anything about Nike, you know their retro Jordan 1s, or retro Jordans in general, they vary wildly in terms of the levels of quality and finish that they, you know, ascribe to them. And it's really distressing too, because they always tend to fetch the highest retail price, I guess, of any Nike shoe that exists for the most part. It's very rare you'd get a Jordan that's going to be under, I'd say, £120, maybe $130. It's very rare. They usually always go for that price and above. So for Nike to justify bringing out this Air Jordan 85, considering the amount of OGs that are available, considering the amount of OGs we've been exposed to on the timeline in general, right? We've seen some really great shapes, right? Let me see if I can actually find one. I'm going to go in here quickly and see if I can get up here. I can find Nike. I'm going to say Air Jordan 185 OG. Let's see if I can find a pair, but there should be loads available that people have actually purchased. Let me see if I can find it. There's an image of one there, kind of. Let's do vintage. Let's see if that comes up right in vintage. But I don't know how they can justify sell. Yeah, there we go. That's probably the same shape, right? So this is from, that's like an 80, what's that, an 85 original Bulls Jordan 1, right? And you've got this one here. But look at just the thumbnail on this alone, right? So this is from a video. Someone's got an entire set of the metallic series, right? Which is pretty impressive. So that's the entire set of the metallic series at Jordan 1s. And look at the shape difference between that and this. Let's move that along here a little bit. Look at the shape difference. The toe box especially. Like, it's absolutely criminal that they're going to actually put these out to market and have kids paying upwards between of, you know, $150 for these, man. And they're absolutely horrendous shape-wise. Like, look how flat that silhouette here is on the toe box, and then you got his unfortunate banana toe thing happening on the front with this massive lip. Now, I know a lot of people online, I've seen that do that. There's some sort of iron trick you can do that can sort of flatten the front of this, but it's not, again, that isn't acceptable. I know back in the day when I used to buy shoes to have, you know, a very, very high level, you know, more than 100 or 200 pairs at the time of my height. I remember back then the justification was that, oh, Nike don't have the tooling, right, to kind of make these shoes again, and it costs too much money. Nike is $1 billion $1 billion company, right? More, you know, in the hundreds of billions, I'm assuming. They make, I don't know, must make easily $1 billion on the Jordan brand alone. You're telling me they can't invest in a tooling process that's allowed them to make the exact same shape that they made in 85 with the brand new retros, and just slap a higher retail price on them? Because I would gladly pay $200, £200, £300 for a pair of Jordan 1s that look like this in a retro, that are like a premium quality. They have some great sort of pamphlets in there, great box, right? Some amazing activation. I'm sure a lot of sneakerheads would be more than happy to pay $200 plus, £200 plus on a pair. But to justify us paying that for this shoe that looks completely horrendous, and look at the mid panel, look at the panel here in the section just underneath the swoosh, how crinkly and odd that is. You already know the leather on that looks absolutely subject. And again, this is just a sample. It could just be the first run. They're gonna maybe go with it again. I'm happy they've got the sort of nylon tongue there. That's great. But apart from that, these look absolutely horrendous compared to the OGs. Like, look how great these look, just shape wise, even just the back. But let's look at the shape of the front just here compared to that toe box here. There's nothing really you can compare to it. And again, meant to come out in 2021, so there's a lot of time for them to actually change it and make it look a bit better. But it's so disappointing to see that they're still kind of hustling us sneakerheads out of our money and doing things like this. Like, again, this is an original, right? Look at the toe difference between that and that. Look at it. Maybe they've got a bit of tissue stuck in the front of them, I'm not too sure, but the shape of these looks completely different to that. Like, it's just not even the same, night and day. And again, that's Nike's fault for not putting out, but for allowing shoes to go out and get leaked like this and not their best condition. They have to have a better way of kind of controlling where their samples go and who gets a hold of them. But based on what I see so far, again, they didn't even bother, because wouldn't you easily pay $200, $300 plus for a pair that's actually made to spec of the OGs, with a discolored midsole, with actually appropriate premium leather on the uppers, a great shape, some great additional items inside the box? I would gladly pay it. But look, the midsole hasn't even been discolored, so you're gonna have kids, teabagging their midsoles to make him look aged, because they do them now at the moment, right? Kids actually age their shoes a bit. It's just so abject. And again, it's such an easy win. There's no glue, all the glue stains here that and love from Jordans. Like, I don't know how they could justify selling you a pair of shoes like that, personally. And the box is obviously not going to be an OG too, but look at the shape, even just from that angle, how much better the OGs look to this image that we have here of the retros. And again, loads of time for them to get changed and edited, but from what I know and how I know they operate, it's such an easy cash grab. The Jordan brand, they could put out complete nonsense and bullcrap as long as they retro colorways. Sneakers are going to be happy with them. But so far, seeing that shape and seeing what the actual OGs look like, and having been exposed to them for the best part of what it feels like 3 or plus years on the timeline, people have been wearing a pair of these neutral grey Jordans, right? Now to finally get them in a retro in that colorway or in that sort of makeup, in that sort of finished product, is really, really disappointing. But it's a proper letdown. But again, who knows? It could change, but I'm not optimistic in that one. Anyway, that is the Agostinho Zinga Show, episode number 397. Thanks so much again for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to have your company as per usual. If it's your first time watching the show via YouTube, make sure you smash that like, hit subscribe, leave me a comment down below. And of course, if you're listening via the podcast app, please leave me a 5-star review and share the show with your friends. As always, support via Patreon is always more than welcome. You can find a link down below. Click the link, support the show via Patreon. That'll be much appreciated. But until then, I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care, be safe. Peace.